thanks to everyone for joining us today as we talk through Java. Also like to thank Gil Tene from Azul Systems for joining me. Thank you, Gil, for your time today. I'm excited about today's presentation. So one of the reasons I'm excited about today's presentation is when Oracle made their announcements for changes to Java, one of the things we're trying to do at Palisade is help our customers, stay in control of their relationship with Oracle. And often that means having alternatives to Oracle. So as Oracle made those announcements and we were advising clients on different paths going forward, a theme kept happening. We've had several clients come to us and say, as Oracle made those changes, we're moving to Azul technologies. So I reached out to Azul, sort of build this relationship. Why are our clients moving to them? So this is another way that we can, help our clients and just provide value and, listen to what Oracle's doing and listen to our alternatives, and then folks make their own decisions on which way they want to go. So I will kick off the discussion today and talk about the changes that Oracle's made to their licensing. And then when I'm done, I'll hand off to Gil and he can talk about the solutions that Azul has in place to help companies as they're dealing with these changes. Just a little bit background about me and Palisade. I worked at Oracle for many years. I was there for 16 years, ran their whole contracts and business practices organization globally. So pretty much anything you bought from Oracle went through my organization. Also, I was there when Oracle bought Sun, sort of did that integration, sort of know that whole process. As far as Palisade goes, we help companies with their Oracle challenges, and that could be licensing challenges, compliance challenges, it could be negotiations or renegotiations, cost reduction. So anything and everything related to Oracle. We're a consulting firm, so we do not sell a technology. We're 100% independent of Oracle. As a matter of fact, we're independent of everybody. We only make money when we help our clients and not through other sources. We only focus on our clients and their Oracle issues. And we are global. We've got offices around the world, and we've got over 400 clients. We started in 2011, so it's been about 8 years now. Here's some of our clients that we work with, again, around the world. As far as how we can help you, these are the questions that clients come to us. So these are one of the things we do when we bring on a new client is just ask them, how can we help you? And these are things that they've said to us. So whether it's help because Oracle's auditing them or they have a ULA, they're moving to the cloud, you can read all of these for yourself. But the one we want to talk about today is Java. So we get a lot of questions from our customers around Java and what should they do because Oracle's putting some pressure on them. So let's get into that. Before I do that, we do have one poll question just so we can set the stage. So Jen, can you bring up that poll question for us, please? So the question here is, what is your current status with Oracle and Java? So, and this is more from the contractual side. Have you signed a new contract with Oracle? Have you decided to use OpenJDK? Are you looking at other solutions from independent firms like Azul? Are you still figuring it out, or you don't know? So I can tell you we've had clients come to us in all of these different buckets. So I think there's a journey for folks here, and often that journey is depending on, has Oracle started knocking on your door or not? We've definitely noticed customers moving faster when Oracle sales is in there talking to them. So Jen, how are we looking for results? Okay, so 82%, either you're still determining your path going forward or you're not sure. Gil, you're probably on mute, but I'll put you on the spot here. Any reactions to this? Is this surprising? Is this what you're saying?
I'd say no, not surprising at all. I think when we look around, people are still trying to figure out what's going on and making plans. And we're seeing a lot of exactly this kind of reaction when we go out and meet people.
Awesome, terrific. Well, thanks, Gil, and Jen, you can take that. So 82% either are still figuring out or you're not really sure, which is really good. So now you'll get some more information so that you can make a really good decision for yourselves. So a little bit of background. Java itself is, I don't want to say it's old technology, but it was created a while ago. It is mature technology. It's being updated constantly. It's vibrant. It's everywhere. We've had customers, I remember we did a Gartner show last year and we had a client come up to the booth and, you know, first, oh, are you an Oracle customer? And they looked at us and go, nope, we're not. But I saw Oracle's announcement and I think we're going to be a big Oracle customer soon. So even customers who don't think they're Oracle customers, if they're using Java in some way, they are, many of them. So you could see the progression of changes that have happened with Java and sort of along the way. Oracle acquired Java in 2010 with the Sun acquisition. And then in May 2018, it took 8 years for Oracle from the time of acquisition to really start to monetize the asset that they acquired with Sun. And the interesting thing with the Sun acquisition, you think about it, you know, Larry Ellison said that Java is the single most important software asset they have ever acquired. And that's saying a lot since they've acquired a lot of software and now cloud assets. But when you look at the acquisition of Java, it is so important, and Oracle basically paid nothing for it because Sun didn't monetize it. So they were giving it away for free. So, you know, great job by Oracle in their M&A strategy, acquiring this technology. Maybe not so great for those who now have to deal with it, but the good news is there are some options going forward. So last year, Oracle made some changes, which many of them came into effect on January 1st, 2019. And I'm not going to get into the weeds here and go into detail. There is a ton more detail on this. We've got some sort of questions to ask yourself at the end here. And your specific use case scenario will depend on your fact pattern. You know, what Java you're using, how you're using it, what are you trying to do with it. So we can't answer everything here. But basically, when we think about the changes that Oracle made, we want to understand that with version 11 or later, you need a license. There are some exceptions, but those are difficult to meet. Anything before version 11, you'll probably need a license because if you want support, if you want updates, and this is where we've had clients sort of, well, they weren't clients at the time, but they got into trouble. They're using an older version of Java, let's say 8, and in April of this year, they went and downloaded some patches and updates and fixes for it. And sure enough, soon thereafter, they got a call from Oracle and said, hey, you don't have a license. You don't have a supported license for that. So you need to get one, right? And that's when they reached out to us. So this client thought that, hey, I could download 8. It's before 11. I'm okay. But in reality, because they had passed sort of a certain window and a certain time frame, they were not allowed to use that without a license. So you just want to be careful. And there's a lot of particulars here when you get to previous versions. The OpenJDK version, which is actually the primary version, and then Oracle JDK is a sort of an offshoot of that. OpenJDK and updates and patches will only be available online for 6 months from the time of release. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But these are sort of the major changes that folks are grappling with in terms of licensing. So some things to ask yourself to determine whether or not you need a license. So again, are you using version 11 or higher? Are you using an older version, but you need support for it? Are you using commercial features that are included with Java? Are you running on something that is not a general purpose computer? Do you have the software embedded in a device, a specialty device? And then again, are you using OpenJDK and you need support for more than 6 months because of the way Oracle's delivering support? it won't be available unless you have a license. So basically, if you answer yes to any of these, then you need a license and a support contract to use Oracle Java. So again, there's a lot more particulars. We can get into much more detail, but I've only got 15 minutes or 20 minutes. So I want to be conscious of time here. But these are the big questions to ask yourself. This will point you in the right direction. Because of Oracle's changes and what they've done with the licensing for Java, everyone's got to make a choice. So whether you want to or not, Oracle's put you in that position where you have to make a choice. And your choices are really, there's three. If you're going to use Java, I guess you could decide not to use any Java. I could have put number 4 up there, but that's not an option for most folks. So number 1 is you can, and these are not in any order of preference, but you can continue with Oracle, pay them, negotiate a contract, and get support. Number 2 is you can run OpenJDK, but there's some costs, although it's quote unquote free, there is an administrative and technological cost of having to update every few months. So if you want to go through that cycle, you can do that. And then you can acquire licenses and support from independent provider like Azul, and they'll be talking about their solution. But in the end, the old world of free supported Java usage is over. Unless you're going to do something like these every 6-month upgrades. So, but even then, if you're using commercial features and things like that, you'll still need a license. So the reality is that Oracle, for better or for worse, is monetizing Java, right? They bought it, and now they're monetizing it. They're suing companies for usage of Java APIs, right? So Oracle and Google are embattled in that, which is, you know, just part of this technology. So Oracle is serious about this, and they're trying to increase their bottom line. So this is one tool that they have to do that as they try to transition into cloud, as people are hesitant to buy more on-prem licenses from them. So what's actually happening now? So right now I can tell you, we're 6-7 months into this transition, and we have not seen any active Oracle audits for Java. So that's good news for y'all on the phone who are using Java. It doesn't mean they're not out there. It just means that we haven't seen them and we haven't heard anyone. We've talked to analysts out there as well, and no one is actually saying, yes, this client has been audited, or I've seen an official Oracle LMS audit letter. So that's not happening. So that's the good news. Now, the bad news is that the sales teams at Oracle often don't need the audit teams to pressure clients, so they can have conversations. I mentioned the one client before who downloaded a patch for version 8 of Oracle Java and got a phone call not long thereafter. So the Oracle sales teams are definitely putting pressure on their clients, saying, hey, you're using Java, you need a license, sign this unlimited Java agreement. So that's out there. So that's the Oracle side. On the client side, what we've seen is customers, when they're faced with that choice, when Oracle's knocked on the door, if they don't have some support or help, they're typically signing agreements with Oracle. And that might not be the unlimited license agreement that Oracle wants, but it could be a term agreement. So, there are sort of different types of ways Oracle licenses Java versus their other technology. So maybe a 1 or 2 year subscription to Oracle will bring down the initial cost of that and give a client time to figure out what they're going to do. While the customers are signing those agreements, then they're reaching out for help. So we've had a few, again, come to us saying, hey, I just signed this agreement with Oracle, but now I'm trying to figure out A, B, and C, can you help me? So they're looking for help on the contractual side, and they're looking for help on the technical side. So good news is you have time to figure things out. Those 82% of you who said that you weren't sure where you were or you were still trying to figure it out, you've got time, but I would bet not much longer. I think there's a strong possibility that if Oracle wanted to audit, they could. If I was still running the audit team at Oracle, I was still running the contracts team at Oracle, that's probably something I would be pushing for heavily because there's money to be made there. If you don't have a support, if you're a business and you don't have a support contract with Oracle and you don't have an alternative, there's definitely money to be made. So what should you be doing during this transition? So the first thing is stuff like this, education. And again, we are just scratching the surface on licensing Java. There's a lot more detail to it. The different open source agreements, the different way it's offered, sort of, and how people are using it. Really, there's a lot more to it, for sure. So educating yourselves, educating your team on the particulars of not only Oracle and OpenJDK, but again, alternatives to those products. Highly recommend that folks assess their current Oracle Java risk and exposure. So making sure your measure, it doesn't have to be exact, right? If you were being audited by Oracle, we definitely want to have an exact measurement, but just a baseline and sort of, again, to point you in the right direction. You know, are you using Java in a big virtualized environment? Have you embedded Java with other applications? Are you just using it with your Oracle applications? Now, those are questions, and we've got a list of questions to ask yourself here. So definitely need to be doing that. Determining the preferred technical direction, that's not something that Palisade helps with, definitely something that Azul can help you with. So figuring out, when you figure out your exposure, that'll help you figure out your technical solutions, right? Those different paths that we talked about. And then finally, once you figure all that out, negotiating the proper Java license and support agreement. So you can see what should clients be doing. We have sign a new license agreement is sort of the last one on the list. But what we're seeing in reality, it's often the first thing that customers are doing. Again, just to get Oracle to go away for a year or two. So you definitely want to go in this order. This will give you leverage with Oracle or any vendor that you're dealing with in terms of technology, that you know what you need and you know what you're using and you know what the delta is and you've researched your options versus just thinking you have a big problem. So these are our recommendations on how clients should proceed. And obviously, we can help you with most of these. On number 4, we can help you in terms of if you've decided to stick with Oracle, we do those contract negotiations. Questions you can ask yourself as you're thinking about your compliance position with Oracle, sort of your needs for licensing going forward. We'll make sure you all get this slide so you can see exactly you know, what we look at. These are some of the things we look at Palisade when we bring on a new client and sort of help them through their journey of figuring out what to do from a licensing perspective with Java. So these go all the way from the contractual to the technical, to the roadmap, to the vision on where you want to go as a company. Some of the things that Oracle does consistently with Java and some of their other solutions is, you know, if you're deployed in a virtualized environment, Oracle looks at that the same way as if you deployed database in a virtualized environment. So if you've got some background on that, you know how much fun that can be at times. So again, we'll make sure you guys get these questions. There's a ton more as you get through and sort of get into the fine details of where you are with Java in terms of your compliance position and your contracts position. But again, these questions should get you pointed in the right direction. So that's my last slide. I just want to thank everyone for your time. Obviously, we can help you with the education, with the analysis, and with your negotiations. We've got a nice 45-day program that we put clients through to get them, again, pointed in the right direction with Oracle. And with that, Gil, that is the end of my presentation. So I will stop sharing and you can go ahead and do your thing.
Thank you. So I think as we transition the screens here, Jen, if you can put up the next polling question about Java version use. Okay. how we looking on that? Oh, nice. So this does seem like again fairly common to what we see out there. We see a fairly dramatic use of Java 8 across the board. Some adoption coming of future Java versions, and a bunch of people that aren't actually quite sure what the mix is, which is a very common thing that we see in general. We see virtually no use of Java 12. That's a very good outcome because people really shouldn't be using that in production much. And another nice thing to see here is that the older Java versions have fairly little use. Java 8 is clearly the dominant use case. So with that, we'll jump into the second section that we have. I'll start off with, I'm Gil Tene, I'm the CTO and one of the co-founders of Azul Systems. And generally, I look at the changes in the Java ecosystem and their implication to all Java users, commercial and otherwise. And as you can see from this slide, I think we're up for a pretty exciting and stormy 2020 in both a good and a bad way. Just a little bit about Azul. Azul is pretty simple. We focus entirely on Java in the JDK. We're the largest Java engineering team after Oracle's. And we're an active contributor and community leader, part of the JCP executive committee, etc. Our Zulu Enterprise product, which is relevant here, is basically the most widely used alternative to Oracle's Java subscriptions. And it provides a full drop-in solution for people who are looking for alternatives. As a company, we've been supporting business critical Java for well over a decade. We've got over 400 customers, more than 25% of the Fortune 100, and 10 out of the top 10 investment banks in the world use our technology and our support. Here's a few sample logos if you'd like to see. There are a lot more that we can show. 2019, the year we're in, actually changed everything for Java. There's a massive change to the Java ecosystem that probably applies to pretty much everybody on the line. And I like to break down the change into 4 areas. The first is the release space of Java that completely switched and changed. The second one is the impact on compatibility across Java releases. What happened to free updates, and version overlap and security updates and what happened with them. All 4 of these things came together in 2019 in a pretty massive way and in a way that pretty much impacts everybody's decisions around Java infrastructure. A simple way to put it is, if you are running Java today, you have to make a choice. You don't have the alternative of staying with whatever you did before. There are choices to be made. You could go to commercial support with Oracle. You could go commercial support elsewhere. You could choose to move on to something else for free or change the way you actually deploy and the pace at which you adapt. But you have to do something. There is no stay with what you have option. So let's get into what each of these areas actually did. And I'll step on each one of them fairly shortly. We start with the release space. So Java has gone from Java 8 to Java 9, 10, 11, 12, and just last week, 13, all in the course of 2 years. So most people forget that Java 9 came out only 2 years ago. And we are now in a 6-month release space for Java, where every 6 months there's a new release, a major release of Java going forward. And those releases force you into choices. Do you stay with the older release longer? Do you move forward with the releases as they get updated? And not all the releases mean the same thing. Some of them are meant for long-term support. Some of them are meant for rapid deployment only if you're willing to switch every few months to a new major release and have the developers available in every application impacted to do so. So this release space has changed a lot. There's a lot of good in it because it does bring new capabilities and new features to market sooner, but it also means that production use needs to treat things differently. It needs to be careful about which releases you roll out and what you do about support at the end of those releases and whether you can move forward. And that leads us into the next issue, which is compatibility. Can you move forward? does the code that runs in the previous Java version that you're already running actually work on this new version that just came out that you might have to move forward to unless you made some choices? And that comes down to a change that happened right after Java 8. Java 8 was really the last version of Java that had this absolute compatibility where all previous code simply ran on this JDK, and it was considered a bug if it didn't. So the Java ecosystem after this is impacted by the fact that new versions of Java are defined in a way that allows them to break compatibility with previous versions. Some old code simply won't work. And the Java ecosystem is made up of a lot of things, not just your applications in the JDK, but a tremendous amount of third-party, open source or otherwise code, much of it sitting in places like Maven Central and GitHub. And it takes a long time for that code to update and adopt to newer versions, primarily because libraries really don't like the idea of leaving existing version users behind, because people are running Java 8 and Java 7 maybe, and libraries still have users that use those. So moving them to a later release, if that move means breaking compatibility with an old one, is a big deal. Historically, all of this worked across versions, all up to and including Java 8. But since Java 9, Java 9, 10, 11, and 12, that's not so much true. We are actually very hopeful. We actively work on helping people move forward with the libraries and try to make them compatible across things in whatever ways possible. But we are right now a year into Java 11, a long-term support of Java past Java 8. And adoption, both in the overall community and the libraries and in general in deployment, seems to be very low. As we saw in the poll, only 25% of the people on the line have more than 5% of their deployments running on Java 11 today. And I would expect that within that, the percentage of deployments that are running Java 11 are still fairly low. I only know of 2 companies we interact with where more than 50% is using Java 11 now. We do hope and expect that this transition will happen, but we expect it to happen much more slowly than the transitions to Java 8 happened or Java 7 happened in the past when they came out. Roughly a year in, we actually expected to see a lot more adoption. Now, why is it that we don't have that great adoption? We think that a big part of it is what happened to free updates. And free updates had a massive shift in 2019. Specifically, April 16th of this year was a date where things changed from a free availability of code, licensing, etc. perspective. And here's the actual website content that you can look at for that. Well, actually, I have my stuff reversed. For the first time in history on April 16th, there was a Java security update. And Java security update means that the bad guys have a recipe for attacking all Java versions that was published by Oracle without providing a free update for any current production version. If you were a paying Oracle customer, you had access to the security updates, but if you were not, they were not free. And there was a free update for the latest current version, Java 12 at the time, that was 3 weeks old on the day that happened. But there was no free update for Java 8 or 11. Now, Oracle did publish Java 8 on their website. There is a Java update, and you can see the notice right there for what the change is. On April 16th, the licensing for the downloadable Java content from Oracle, including Java 8 updates that you can download, carry a new license. You can dig into that license. We actually highly recommend you do, but a simplistic description of it is, this is no longer for commercial use without paying. You can use it in various free ways for research, for personal use, etc. But if you're going to use it in the course of business, you need to be on a paying license, or you can move to one of those free GPL versions that are not here. Okay, why is this so important? What is the impact of no longer having free updates to these security updates and version overlaps? There are new versions available. They do have free updates to those, but those move every 6 months. And the key thing here is that security updates and version overlap of security updates is really the lifeblood of production use. To give you a feel for what that means, when you have a new version of Java come out, like Java 7, 8, 11, it takes time for it to stabilize after its initial GA. And here are some actual statistics on that. There were almost 2,000 bugs fixed in Java 8 in the first 17 months following the general availability. There were 1,200 bugs fixed after the first 6 months. So when we talk about things that will last for 6 months and then you have to move to the next one and the next one, historically, we've had a tremendous number of bugs fixed post that point, and really release stability, the adoption of people into a fully production-worthy GA release usually happens sometime during that first year, as most of the bugs that are reported in the field are actually fixed. Now, production use during that time will remain on the previous version, on the previous GA version until there's maturation. And during that time, we need updates for the old version because that's what we're running. We can't move to the new version because it's not yet fully stable. We need security updates for what we're running, and therefore we have to have version overlap. If you look at history, this is what version overlap used to look like in Java. This is what we're all used to, and many people still expect to see going forward, but unfortunately is no longer available for free. Back in the Sundays, there were up to 5 years of version overlaps between things. We can see that, for example, the move from Java 5 to Java 6, there were 3 years of updates, free updates for Java 5 before that stopped and after Java 6 came out. So after Java 6 came out, it had 3 years for it to bake, get stable, for you to adopt it before you no longer had updates for Java 5 that you were running. But the move from 6 to 7 ended up being shorter. There was only about 1.7 years, about I think it was 19 or 20 months of overlap, where you had fixes available for Java 6, but there was already a GA version 7 that you can start moving to, and there was time for it to fully bake, fully stabilize before you had to leave 6 behind. You can see that the overlap between 7 and 8 got squeezed down to just over a year. I believe it was about 13 months. And then we went from 8 to 11 with a 4 months overlap, and that was the last overlap in the free world. Going forward, this is the map we are looking at. Those long red lines are the long-term support versions from Oracle that are available as a paid subscription, not as free. The gray lines are what is available for free. Each one of them lasts 6 months, stops with 0 overlap with the next one that you can move on to, but it's just come out. And as long as you can keep tracking those and are willing to live in with the instability of each, you can stay on the free train, but otherwise, you basically have to choose a paid subscription if you want full readily available support. We are currently at this point in time. Java 13 just came out a week ago. Now, in this world where the rapid release changes basically move from one free release to another free release to another free release, each just recently GA'd, with whatever instability comes with that, with the time that it takes to stabilize before you move to the next one, you basically have to figure out what you're going to do about getting updates for your actual production systems to keep them running without bringing developers in to work with whatever new issues a new version will come with every time. And when we look at security updates in the real world, it's important to identify and look at what historically we've learned to use and have had available. The terms that Oracle uses, Sun uses, we use are CPUs and PSUs. And before we get into them, I'd like to take a quick poll and see how people actually today react to changes in security updates. So Jen, can you put up the new poll? Thank you. So the key question here is, when there is a high or critical CVE, scored as a high and critical by whatever scoring system there is, how long do you take in your systems before you update them to deal with the security issue? We see a high variance across the world for that, and we're very interested to see what this audience will answer with. But the key thing here is we see things going from deep systems somewhere in the organization that are able to wait a year because nobody's going to get to them, to externally exposed API gateways and servers that people tend to be sensitive to and would like updated. So let's see what the results are looking like. Good. So as you can see here, we do see that a large portion of our audience doesn't actually know the answer, is that's not really surprising, or they can take much longer. You can see that there's a certain portion that sees extreme urgency for reaction below a week. Then we have the within 30 days or less grouping, which is very common. We need to get out there with the fix up and ready in 30 days or less, which if you think about it from a production point of view is still a time crunch. And then there's a good portion that can take their time and take longer than that. So let's with those answers, let's look at the vehicles that we have for reacting to security updates. So a PSU and a CPU are, here are what they actually mean. A PSU is a patch set update. A patch set update is a quarterly update that includes all kinds of things. It includes features and enhancements and backports for newer Java versions for cool things like container support. It includes general bug fixes that may not be critical, and it includes critical security fixes. A CPU, which is a critical patch update, includes only the critical security fixes. The difference between these two is major because a PSU is how you generally move forward to adapt the new things and the new bug fixes in your environment with no urgency, where you have time to test, time to roll out, figure out what this thing might break in your production environment, and work around it in whichever way, maybe take your time deploying it. A CPU is the way you react to urgent issues. When there is an urgent issue, the vehicle that you can use in order to deliver the fixes with low risk, without having to retest everything, potentially take on a destabilization because of some of those features or backports that might conflict with your systems, a CPU is the vehicle used to not take that risk. Now, these CPUs and PSUs have both been available for well over a decade now in the Java world, once a quarter. And each of these CPUs is based on the previous cycle CPU. So every quarter, what you get is both of these. You have time to move on to the PSU at your leisure, test, make sure all your systems actually work right, get ready for deployment and deploy them. It's probably a good idea to deploy it sometime in the 3 months that follow the PSU release, because that's what makes you ready for the next CPU that is based on it if you need to use it urgently. But the hope is usually that we don't need to use it urgently, that no high severity thing happens. And statistically, high severity things do not happen every quarter. But also statistically, they do happen every year or two. For example, on April 16th of this year, there was a CVSS 9.0 scoring CVE, that's a critical, and two 8.1s, both of those are high. Since then, we haven't had a high. We might or might not, we don't know what the future entails. The last truly critical one before April 16th of this year was in 2017 when we had a CVSS 9.6, which is super critical. Those are the kind of things that make people hit a red button and deploy at least in all their publicly facing servers with no testing, because the bad guys have the keys to the kingdom at that point. So with that, an important point to make is that currently in the market, Azul's JDKs, or Zulu Enterprise and Zing JDKs, and Oracle's JDKs are the only JDKs that make both a PSU and a CPU update available. These are the only JDKs that have that critical security delivery vehicle that does not entail taking on the risk of all the other goodies and all the other changes needing to deploy at the same time. There are alternatives out there, but all of them ship only a PSU. These are the only two that provide the security vehicle that is probably best fit for production use. And we talked about the roadmap. When you're sitting here and you're looking for how do you move across these versions and have a low risk deployment security vehicle, I'm going to overlay the Azul support map for Azul Enterprise on top of that. You can see the red lines, those are the commercially supported Oracle offerings, where if you're on an Oracle subscription, you get these support. The blue lines are the ones from Azul. We obviously match and support all the ones that Oracle do. But as you might notice here, we actually add additional support vehicles, things we call not just LTS, which we support for 8 years, but MTS releases that we support intentionally with an overlap, an 18-month overlap with the next LTS release, so that you can deploy on this, know that you can update at low risk going forward for quite a while. And yes, you will have to move on to the next LTS release, but you won't have to do it the day it comes out. You will have 18 months to transition before no newer updates will happen to the middle releases. We actually think that this more detailed support map will help people adopt new versions like Java 13 that just came out, because Java 13 is an MTS release from Azul's point of view. Azul enterprise customers will keep having Java 13 updates until, I believe it's March of 2023. Yes, March of 2023, where at which point Java 17, which is the next LTS expected, will be 18 months old. So with that, I'll just summarize what Zulu Enterprise is. Zulu Enterprise is basically a direct alternative to an Oracle Java subscription. It includes releases, both at LTS and MTS, and quarterly updates, all fit for long-term production use and urgent deployment when needed. It has timely security updates with SLAs and contract. It includes both indemnification and non-contamination protections for people who are worried about issues around GPL and other things. And it's used widely across multiple industries and is probably the most prevalent alternative to Oracle out there. We support across a wide versions of Java. Java 6, 7, 8, 11, and 13 are still supported in production today. And the roadmap is clear and posted on the web. And obviously we have 24/7 support. I've already mentioned that there are various companies using us across very large sets of industries, from small to large, from mission critical to simply some back-end systems. People use us across a lot of things. And with that, I think I'll put up the beginning slide we had for this entire session, and let's transition to some Q&A.
Perfect. Thank you both. So we have a handful of questions to go through. And again, if anything comes to mind, please feel free to type it in the Q&A box and we will try to get to it. Okay, so the first question is, how should we best negotiate these subscription licenses with Oracle sales?
So that one, you know, obviously you want to be in a position of strength when you're negotiating. So if Oracle's in there saying, we know you're using Java, we know you're using commercial features, and we know you don't have a license for it, a supported license, and we know you're downloading updates and patches, you have a much weaker position. So first thing is, you know, our recommendations from before in terms of, you know, assessing your actual usage of Java, making sure you've looked at alternatives to Oracle, and then negotiating with them. And, you know, from that standpoint, once you're in that position of strength or control, then you could use all the same levers that you used before with other technologies, quarter ends and that sort of thing. But you definitely want to make sure you have a baseline and you know your position before you start your negotiation with Oracle. And that is true with any vendor in any line of business.
And I would say this, Gil, as a vendor, we're in a strange situation where we usually recommend that people go talk to Oracle before they talk to us. Because one is we often play that role of being the alternative and being used in the negotiation with Oracle. We also believe that the experience and what you will hear from Oracle about what they are looking for and what the experience is talking to our people about alternatives usually puts us in a good light.
Great. So this question we've had a couple variations of, but it is, do you have any recommendations on a tool to audit for the presence of Oracle Java?
So that sort of depends on, you know, many companies already have a software asset management tool. I don't know of any that specifically look for all the information you need to determine Java licensing, but those tools I know can be configured to pull in certain information around Java. And then obviously at Palisade, we've got a methodology that we do to assess a client's usage of Java. I don't know, Gil, do you guys have a tool that you use when you're doing more technical implementations to go out and sniff out Java?
So no, we don't actually have a tool, but interestingly, this is a common question we get from prospects and customers. So there is probably a strong need for that. As you mentioned, we do meet a lot of different asset management software things in the market. We don't have any specific choice of recommendation there. And to be fair, usually people either have a tool or they don't. It's usually putting a tool like that in place takes months and months. It's not something you can simply say, look at it now. So I generally highly recommend people do asset tracking in order for them to be able to do that. But I wouldn't expect a magic solution that suddenly gets turned on and tells you where everything is. It takes time to get that embedded and enforced across your infrastructure.
Yeah, so this one, Jen, is a, there's two parts of this. There's the discovery of Java, and then there's the analysis. Once you find it, then figuring out what does that mean, right? So I think with Java in particular, it's a software, it's a technology that you can do an assessment without necessarily having a tool. You won't be able to get the full size and scope, but this is more Q&A. So what I mean by that is if Oracle were to start auditing, I don't believe they have a tool to go out and find Java. They would do a lot of questioning of your technical staff and your business leaders and on how they're using those products to come up with a position. I wish there was a magic bullet. You could just press the button and the easy button, but there isn't.
Great, thank you. Another question is Zulu available to the non-x86 platform?
So the answer is yes. We support Zulu Enterprise today on all variants of x86, both 64-bit and 32-bit, Linux, all variants, Mac, Windows, etc. We also support ARM64 in our Zulu Enterprise. We also have a wide line of what we call Zulu Embedded, but we support them across the board on ARM32, PowerPC 64 and 32, even MIPS 32. So you'll find, if you look at a Azul website, you'll find a very wide range of JDK versions. Every quarter we build around 800 different JDK variants because of the wide matrix we support.
Great, thank you. Another question, if we have Weblogic Enterprise as part of a ULA, are we off the hook in terms of worrying about Java licensing on the server side of our environment?
So Java is included with Weblogic Enterprise. I'm not going to say you're off the hook because I'd want to make sure that your Java usage is only for the applications or however it's defined in that agreement, right? So there are embedded Java licenses with restricted or limited use functionality, and there's more full use where you can use in general, for example, with EBS as well. Java's included, but if you're running Java on the server and you're using it to support non-EBS applications, you could have a problem. So I'm not going to tell you you're off the hook, but I will tell you you're better off than if you didn't have it.
Yeah, I would chime in and say, generally speaking, within the vertical Oracle stacks, whether it's Weblogic or one of the Oracle business applications that might include Java within, it is our understanding that the Java licensing specifically for those application environments is included. However, it's also our understanding that those licenses do not allow you to use that for any other purpose, including any Java microservice or non-Oracle based product that you might run on those JVMs. That is a dramatic shift that happened this year, because before April 16th of this year, the JVMs and the JDKs you got from Oracle were usable for pretty much anything. And this year is when the licensing changed.
Great, thank you. Another question, I'm using software from a third party that has Java embedded in it. What should I be concerned about?
So this one, and I think, Jen, we might have gotten a couple of questions with the same variant. There's two answers here. The first answer is you need to look at those agreements with those third-party vendors to see exactly what's included and what's not included, right? So obviously you buy an application, you're under the assumption that the licenses that you need to run that application are included. Java is one of them. There are so many applications and so many vendors that embed Java. There's no way for me to give an answer on whether you're okay or not. You actually have to go back to those. The second part of the answer, however, is if you're using an Oracle product, Oracle expects you to maintain compliance with your usage of it. So if Oracle were to knock on the door, you can't just say, hey, I bought this application from so-and-so, and they told me Java was included with it, so I'm okay, right? So you definitely want to look at those third-party agreements and just be prepared that, Oracle doesn't accept, hey, someone else is responsible for that. It's always, and that's, again, something Oracle is very consistent on. If you're using their technology, their products, it's your responsibility to stay in compliance.
Yeah, I would say from our point of view, this situation of third-party applications in Java is a huge part of our business. Our experience is that they come in two forms. One is a third-party application that expects you to have a JVM to run on. Large numbers of those were those. And in the past, that just meant download the free Java and it's fine. But we're now in a world where those third-party applications now require you to get a JDK. The JDK that is from Oracle, there's financial implications to that. We're seeing a dramatic shift in that market where the third-party providers are now in a situation where they have to provide solutions for their customers that don't require commercial support from Oracle necessarily. And as a result, they're starting to either embed or point you to other solutions. Zulu is one of the most common solutions. And to give you a few examples, some of the largest software companies out there, including SAS, and Software AG, are now OEMing the Zulu Enterprise product and including them in their products in order to address exactly that question. We see that all the way from various software-only third parties, like I mentioned, all the way to embedded systems like printers and cars and other environments. So our Zulu embedded product line, which is aimed both at true embedded applications, but also at embedding in third-party pieces of software is one of our thriving parts of the business.
Great, thank you. So we probably have time for one or two more questions. One is, do you have any recommendations for blocking the ability to download Java?
Gil, do you want to start with that?
I wouldn't say I have a recommendation. We do see in a lot of our customers all kinds of controls in place on what people are able to download in general, and people have put the Oracle Java download sites on their sort of black or gray lists in order to make sure that they don't accidentally get contaminated. The interesting situation we have is in the past when Oracle stopped providing free support for Java versions, the versions that didn't have the free support were not available to the public to download. You had an archive of the free stuff. But since April of this year, you can download Java 8 and you can download Java 11 from Oracle. They just come with this big warning that doing so and using it commercially puts you, the license has requirements and you need to check it. So you're in this new world where it is now downloadable with a license implication that they can that could impact. And as a result, people have been filtering those downloads where they do have controls. However, we do also work with quite a few companies that don't have such controls in place, or for example, the controls in place might be there for servers, but not for desktops and laptops. And there isn't enough control of people's personal choices. And as a result, there is some exposure where people could be downloading directly from there, clicking on that shrink wrap click through, not really realizing what the implication is on the new license, in spite of that big red warning at the top of the page. And then you might end up with a commercially licensed product that you have not yet paid for.
Awesome. Thanks, Gil. Jen, anything else?
I think that covers it. We had a couple more specific technical questions that we can follow up with afterwards through email.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Jen, for hosting, and Gil, thank you for joining us today and going through all things Java. It's very informative, very helpful, and thanks to everyone on the line for your time. And if you have any questions, please reach out to Gil or myself, and we're happy to help you. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thanks.